In the far galaxy of Surfian Delta, many alien empires ruled. The strongest among them was the Tharkan Empire, ruled by the elegant and powerful Zarians. These tall, silver-skinned beings had long tails covered in soft, crystal-like scales. Their leader, Queen Varelia, was known across the stars for her beauty, wisdom, and strict rule. The queen sat on her floating throne inside the grand palace of Tharkan Prime, the capital world of the empire. Her tail shimmered in the golden lights above. Thousands of alien leaders had bowed before her, but she remained cold and proud. Humans were the newest race to join galactic politics. They were fast learners, brave in battle, and full of emotion. Many alien species did not like humans. They called them wild apes or unrefined creatures. But humans did not care. They rose quickly and surprised the galaxy. Now, for the first time, humans were invited to a peace summit on Tharkan Prime. The goal was to avoid war and build a future together. But trust was low. A human military officer named Commander Ryan Hayes was part of Earth's delegation. He was known for his sharp mind and fierce loyalty. His face had a scar from a past alien war, and his eyes showed he had seen too much. Still, he walked with pride as he entered the Queen's chamber. The chamber was huge, with pillars made of moonstone and banners of the Empire hanging high. Alien leaders from many species stood in rows. The Queen sat at the end, raised above. Ryan stood beside the human ambassador wearing his dark blue uniform. He noticed how the other aliens looked at him with disgust or fear. The Queen spoke first. Her voice was calm but powerful. "Humans," she said, "you arrive late to the stars, yet you demand respect." The ambassador bowed slightly. "We seek peace and partnership." Queen Varelia's tail moved slowly, swaying like a cobra. Her golden eyes looked at Ryan. "Is peace what you seek, Commander Hayes?" Ryan nodded. "Yes, Your Majesty." She smiled lightly. "At your people. Send soldiers, not just diplomats." "We believe in speaking with words," Ryan said, "but we don't leave our backs open." A low chuckle came from one of the Zarian nobles, Prince Jaros, the Queen's cousin. He stood tall beside her throne and laughed loudly. "Earthlings are still beasts, always ready to throw rocks." Ryan clenched his jaw. He felt heat rising inside. Looked at the ambassador, but the older man said nothing. The room stayed silent. Queen Varelia raised one hand. "Let us continue with reason," but Prince Jaros cut her off. "Let's not waste time. They beg for seats in our council while they still live in metal boxes and burn fuel like cavemen." That was too much. Ryan stepped forward. "You speak with a lot of pride, Prince. Have you ever fought for anything in your life?" The room froze. Guards stepped closer. A few diplomats gasped. Queen Varelia's eyes narrowed. Her tail lifted and flicked forward, a Zarian warning sign. It was a symbol of anger, a silent command to stop speaking. Ryan stared at the tail, his fists clenched. He thought of the humans who died fighting alien pirates. He remembered the young pilot who cried when the Zarians refused to send aid. He remembered Earth being laughed at in galactic news reports. His hands trembled. Then, something inside him snapped. Before anyone could stop him, Ryan stepped forward and grabbed the Queen's tail. Gasps exploded in the chamber. Time seemed to stop. The tail was soft but firm. Warm, almost alive. Ryan held it just enough to stop it from flicking again. "You don't get to look down on us anymore," he said, his voice low but strong. "We bleed, we fight, and we survive, just like you once did." Weapons clicked. Guards raised their spears. One moved forward, ready to strike. The ambassador shouted, "Commander, stop!" But Queen Varelia raised her hand again, this time to stop her own guards. Everyone waited for her to scream, to order Ryan's death, but she didn't. Instead, she looked down at him, her face calm. Her golden eyes glowed with something new. "One," she said slowly, "has touched my tail in 500 years. Ryan let go, confused. "I meant no harm. But I will not be insulted." The Queen stared at him a moment longer. Then, to everyone's shock, she smiled. "You were bold. Human. Foolish. but bold. She turned to her guards. "Lower your weapons." The guards obeyed, though clearly shaken. Prince Jaros looked furious. He must be punished. But the queen only said, "Not today." Ryan stood tall. The queen studied him with interest. "Perhaps will be more exciting than I expected." The chamber was still silent, but the air had changed, for the first time in centuries. Someone had touched the sacred tail of the queen and lived, and for the first time, the queen didn't mind. The room stayed silent long after Ryan let go of Queen Virelia's tail. No one moved. The air felt heavy, like the calm before a storm. Guards still stood ready, their weapons aimed, but they waited for the queen's command. The human ambassador was pale with fear. The Zarian nobles looked shocked and angry. Prince Jaros's eyes burned with rage. But Queen Virelia, she only stared at Ryan. "You may return to your place," she said softly. Ryan stepped back without fear. His heart was beating fast, but his face stayed calm. He had expected punishment, maybe even death. But she had spared him. "Why?" The queen turned to the others. "Let the summit continue tomorrow. This session is over." She stood and walked out, her long tail sliding behind her like a shining ribbon. The guards followed her. The nobles whispered to one another in disbelief. Ryan said nothing as he and the ambassador walked out. Later that day, Ryan sat alone in a quiet room inside the palace. The walls were made of smooth white stone, glowing softly in the dim light. He looked at his hands. They were still shaking. He had touched the queen's tail. The one thing no one was allowed to do? He remembered her eyes. Not angry, not cold, just curious. The door opened. A young Zarian stepped in. "The queen requests your presence, alone." Ryan stood up. "Now, yes, follow me." Ryan was led through winding halls to a private garden deep inside the palace. The air smelled sweet. Strange plants glowed with soft blue lights. A waterfall made a gentle sound nearby. Queen Virelia stood under a tall silver tree. She turned. When she saw him, "Thank you for coming, Commander Hayes." "You asked?" "I came," Ryan said, keeping his voice steady. She smiled a little. "Still bold? That's good." He walked closer but kept a respectful distance. "Why did you stop your guards?" She looked up at the stars through the garden dome. "Because I wanted to understand. You didn't grab my tail to insult me. You did it to make a point." Ryan nodded. "I was angry. But I meant every word." She looked at him again. "Do you know what my tail means to my people? It's sacred. Touching it is like an attack. Yes. But it's also more than that. It is a symbol of rule. A queen's tail is her pride, her power, her past. Only my mother touched it once when she named me queen." Ryan was quiet. "I didn't mean to break your laws." "You didn't break them," she said. "You challenged them." That surprised him. The queen walked slowly toward him. "My empire is strong on the outside, but inside it is tired. For centuries, no one has dared to speak against tradition. No one has looked me in the eyes and said, 'Enough.' Not until you." Ryan blinked. "You're not angry?" She smiled again. "I should be, but I'm not." There was silence for a moment. Then she asked, "Why do humans fight so hard? Why do you push, even when the whole galaxy looks down on you?" Ryan thought for a moment. "Because we've always had to fight. We start at the bottom. We've been ignored, attacked, even betrayed. But we keep moving forward. That's how we survive." She nodded slowly. "It's admirable. Dangerous, but admirable." Then her eyes grew serious. "But you must be careful. What you did today has shaken the council. Many nobles are angry. Some believe I'm growing soft." "Because I showed you respect?" Ryan asked. "No, because I didn't kill you." Far away, deep inside the palace, Prince Jaros spoke to a Zarian general named Kelthor. The two stood in a dark chamber, away from the queen's ears. "She's changing," Jaros said angrily. "That human touched her tail, and she did nothing."
Kelthor
Frowned. "She has ruled for many years. But this is weakness. She must be removed, Jaros whispered. The general nodded slowly. Then we begin the plan. At the moonlight ceremony, all her loyal guards will be distracted. She will fall, and we shall rise. Back in the garden, the queen spoke again. Tomorrow, the summit continues. You will be there. Ryan raised an eyebrow. Even after what I did, she gave a small laugh, especially because of it. He looked around the garden. Why did you bring me here? Really? She stepped closer. Because I see something in you. Fire. Truth. We Zarians used to have that long ago, before we became proud and slow. Ryan looked into her golden eyes. What are you planning? She turned away and looked at the stars again. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Then she looked over her shoulder. But know this. The galaxy is watching. You may have just lit a fire they can't put out. As Ryan walked back to his room, he thought about her words. Fire, truth, challenge. He hadn't come to start trouble. He came to protect Earth's name. But now something big was happening. He had touched the queen's tail in anger, but her reaction might change the galaxy forever. The next day, the sun of Tharkan Prime rose slowly, casting soft blue light across the sky. The palace towers glowed like crystal, and the banners of the empire waved in the wind. It was supposed to be a peaceful day, but something in the air felt different. Commander Ryan Hayes stood on a high balcony looking down at the city below. Flying ships moved through the sky. Alien creatures walked on shining roads. Everything looked calm, but Ryan knew beneath that calm something was moving. He still remembered the queen's eyes from the night before. Not cold, not angry, just thoughtful. She had asked him why humans fight so hard. He had told her the truth now. He felt like he had started something he didn't fully understand. Inside the queen's private chamber, Virelia stood near a mirror. Her servants placed a silver cloak over her shoulders. Long tail glowed softly in the morning light. But she wasn't thinking about clothes or appearances. She was thinking about the human. For 500 years, no one had touched her tail. No one had dared. But Ryan had. And not to insult her, but to challenge her. To stop the old ways from crushing truth. She felt something she hadn't felt in years alive. One of her closest guards, Captain Sirith, entered the room. Your Majesty, the council is worried about the human, she asked. He nodded. Yes, they say you're giving him too much attention. She smiled. They're right. Sirith frowned. And the nobles? Some are speaking with General Kelthor. He is ... dangerous. I know, she said. Watch him closely. Meanwhile, in a quiet part of the palace, Prince Jaros met with Kelthar again. The queen has changed, Jaros said. She trusts the human more than her own blood. Kelthar's face was hard. Then she is unfit to rule. Jaros lowered his voice. We act during the moonlight ceremony. The guards will be few. She'll be open. You take her, I claim the throne and the human, Kelthar asked. Kill him, Jaros said coldly. Slowly. Kelthar smiled. Later that day, the council gathered again. Queen sat on her throne, with guards standing around the room. Aliens from many races filled the seats, and at the edge stood Ryan. This time, the room felt different. Everyone looked at him, some with fear, some with interest. But no one ignored him anymore. Queen Virelia stood and spoke. Yesterday a line was crossed. Human touched my tail. A holy symbol. He should be punished, but I chose not to. The room buzzed with whispers. She raised her voice. Do you know why? Because he showed us something we forgot. Fire. The fire to stand for truth, even in danger. The fire to speak, when no one else dares. She turned toward Ryan. Commander Hayes, step forward. Ryan walked slowly to the center of the room. The queen looked at him. You are not like the others. And because of that, I ask you, what does your world truly want? Ryan took a breath. Respect, peace, and the right to stand as equals. To rule, a noble shouted. No, Ryan said. But not to be ruled either. Silence followed. Then the queen nodded. Let this be known. From today, Earth is given a seat in the Outer Council, and the humans will no longer be seen as children. Gasps filled the chamber. Prince Jaros stood quickly. This is madness, he shouted. They insult us and you reward them. Virelia's voice was cold. Careful, cousin, stepped back, hiding his anger. Later that evening, Queen Virelia walked in her private garden again. Ryan joined her. I didn't ask for this, he said. She nodded. But you earned it. You're taking a big risk. She looked into his eyes. I know. There was silence for a while, and she asked, Do you miss your world? He smiled. Every day, but I'll fight for it here if I have to. She looked at him for a moment. You remind me of my ancestors. Before we became soft with peace, they had fire too. You still have it, Ryan said. She looked at the stars above. I wonder. Far from the garden, Kelthur's troops gathered in shadows. Quiet. Ready. The plan was simple. Strike at the moonlight ceremony. End the queen. Blame the humans. Take control. Kelthur looked at the weapons, the armor, the soldiers. This'll be the last night of her reign, he whispered. The twin moons of Tharkin Prime slowly rose into the sky. Their silver light touched the tallest towers, the lowest streets, and the glowing gardens of the palace. It was the night of the moonlight ceremony, a tradition older than any human nation. People gathered in large crowds. Zarian stood quietly, waiting to see their queen. For centuries, this night had been a time of pride and peace. But tonight, peace was in danger. Inside the palace, Queen Virelia stood in front of a large mirror. Her silver cloak shimmered, and her long tail moved slowly behind her. Her face was calm, but her heart was not. She knew something was wrong. She had felt the change in the air, the looks from her nobles, the silence from the guards who once smiled. Her most trusted soldier, Captain Cirith, stood beside her. Are you sure you want to walk among the people tonight? I must, she said. If I show fear, they will follow it. But if I show strength, they may follow you, Cirith finished. She gave him a small smile. Exactly. Far below, Commander Ryan Hayes walked through the lower halls of the palace. Was not wearing a diplomat's suit anymore. He wore his old armor, dark blue with Earth's symbol on the chest. By his side walked to other humans, Lieutenant Mayra, tech expert, and Sergeant Tom Briggs, a heavy weapons specialist. You sure about this? Mayra asked. Something's wrong, Ryan said. I got a warning. We can't ignore it. Briggs checked his scanner. Guards are moving in strange patterns. Too many near the gates, not enough near the queen. She's the target, Ryan said. They'll strike tonight. In a hidden chamber near the top of the palace, General Kelthar met with Prince Jaros. Our soldiers are in place, Kelthor said. Once the queen enters the crowd, we attack. Blame the humans. Remove them all. And the throne will be mine, Jaros said, his eyes shining with greed. Kelthor nodded. Long live the new empire. They pressed a button. On a silver box, a small light blinked. All across the palace, secret soldiers began moving. Outside, the moonlight ceremony began. Queen Virelia stepped onto the wide bridge that connected the palace to the garden platform. Below her, thousands of citizens stood quietly looking up. The queen raised her hand. Tail moved behind her like a glowing ribbon. My people, she began, tonight we celebrate unity, peace, and strength. For centuries, we have stood proud. But the galaxy is changing suddenly. Sharp sound broke the silence. A plasma shot. It hit the bridge near the queen's feet. Smoke and fire burst into the air. Screams followed. Guards turned. People ran from the rooftops. Black-armored soldiers dropped down. Weapons ready, it's an attack. Captain Cirith shouted, pulling the queen back. Kelthur's voice echoed through a speaker. The queen has fallen. Humans have betrayed us. Fight for the empire. More shots rang out. The loyal guards were surrounded, but they weren't alone. Ryan and his team burst from a side hallway. Protect the queen, Ryan shouted. He fired at the attackers with his energy rifle. Briggs laid down cover fire. Mayra hacked a control panel and opened a defense shield around the queen. Your Majesty, stay behind us. Ryan shouted as more enemies approached. Queen Virelia looked at him, surprised but nodded. She pulled a small dagger from her belt. I will not hide. On the burning bridge, Ryan fought beside Zarian guards. Enemies came from every side. Leapt toward the queen. Ryan tackled him off the edge of the bridge. They hit a lower platform hard. Ryan groaned, then stood up. Pulling out a second weapon, he saw Kelthor himself walking through the smoke. You should have stayed silent, human, Kelthor said, raising his blade. You should have stayed honest, Ryan replied. The two charged, their weapons clashed. Sparks flew. Kelthor was stronger, but Ryan was faster. He dodged a killing blow and punched Kelthor hard in the face. The general stumbled then, with a blast from his wrist cannon. Ryan knocked Kelthor off the platform. The general fell. Above, the queen stood tall. She looked over the battlefield. Listen to me, she shouted. The traitor, said the humans, attacked me. But I am alive. I am standing, and they are fighting beside me. People looked up. They saw Ryan and the others still defending. I name them defenders of the crown, she said. And I name Keltho and Jaros as traitors to the Empire. Tears followed. Loyal soldiers regained courage. They turned on the rebels. Hours later, the battle ended. Smoke still filled the air. Bodies lay across the palace floors. Ryan sat on the edge of a platform, breathing hard. His armor was burned. His arm was bleeding. The queen walked over. You saved my life. You saved your own, he replied with a small smile. I just helped. She looked at him. You carry fire in your heart, the kind we've forgotten. And now? Ryan asked. She looked out over her people. And we change everything. The night was still thick with smoke as the palace of Tharkan Prime began to settle. The once bright bridge now lay in ruins. The moonlight ceremony meant to bring peace had turned into a battle that echoed through the empire. But Queen Virelia, though injured, stood tall. She looked at the battlefield below her. Zarian soldiers, once loyal to Kelthar and Prince Jaros, now began to turn, eyes full of fear and shame. Many had already surrendered. The traitors who had tried to claim the throne were now locked in the dungeons. Commander Ryan Hayes stood. Beside her, his weapon lowered. He was tired, his armor scorched, but his eyes were clear. His team had fought hard, but the true test was yet to come. The galaxy would soon know the truth. You did it, Your Majesty, Ryan said quietly. She glanced at him, a hint of a smile crossing her face. Did it, she corrected. Far below, Prince Jaros was still alive, though barely. But he had escaped the battle, but not without injury. Kelthor's plan had failed, and now his cousin's treachery was exposed for all to see. But Jaros wasn't finished. He was angry, and anger made him dangerous. He limped through the dark halls of the palace, heading toward a secret exit. He had one last trick up his sleeve. Behind him in the shadows, a group of loyal soldiers followed. They were ready to fight, ready to die. Jaros would not go down without a final fight. Queen Virelia stood on the steps of the palace watching. As the last of the rebel forces were taken into custody, the empire had been shaken, but not broken. The people still looked to her, and they trusted her. Ryan stepped forward. Your Majesty, it's not over. We need to secure the outer gates. Jaros and his people could still escape. Virelia nodded. You're right. But tonight, we celebrate this victory. Her voice carried to her people, and they cheered. Inside the palace, General Kelthor, still alive, but badly injured, was brought before the queen. He had not fought well. The plan had failed, and he had lost his pride in the process. General Virelia said coldly, I trusted you once, and now you betray me. Kelthor knelt before her. I am sorry, Your Majesty. I was wrong. She stepped forward. You were blinded by your own ambitions, and now you will be tried for your crimes. He looked up at her, his eyes full of shame. What will you do with me? Her eyes darkened. You will be imprisoned like any other traitor. Kelthar did not argue. He knew better than to question the queen's power. His defeat was final. The following hours were filled with tension and uncertainty. Though most of the rebels had been defeated, the palace still felt like a war zone. The battle had changed everything. People were starting to see the truth. The old ways were gone. There was no room for those who sought power through violence and deceit. Ryan and his team, alongside the Queen's loyal guards, made their way through the inner palace halls. They checked every corner, every door, making sure Jairus is last. Supporters were not hiding. They didn't find much. The prince's supporters were scattering. Knowing their leader had failed? "We're almost clear," Ryan said as he lowered his weapon. "But I think Jairus is gone." Aurelia stepped into the room. Not gone. She looked at Ryan. "Do you understand now why I did not destroy the humans immediately?" Ryan nodded. "But you saw something in us?" "I did," she said softly. "I saw fire. Yes. I saw the strength to stand up, even when everything tells you to bow." Outside, the Queen's people began to regroup. The ceremony had turned into chaos, but now it had sparked something new. The rebels were defeated, and the palace was safe, but the galaxy was watching. Ryan stood on the balcony, looking out over the city. "This isn't just about Tharkin Prime," he said. "It's about the galaxy. People need to see what happened here. They need to know the truth." Aurelia joined him. "You're right, Commander, and they will." She paused, watching the people below. "Tonight, we took back the future. No more lies. No more old ways. The Empire will change. The galaxy will change." Ryan turned toward her. "What will you do next?" She smiled. "I will lead, and I will learn from you." Ryan's eyes met hers. "Together, then?" "Together," she replied. Hours later, in the quiet of her chamber, Queen Virelia stood before a large mirror. Her wounds were treated, but her mind was still sharp. She was no longer the queen who ruled with fear and tradition. The galaxy would see her as a queen who ruled with strength, courage, and fire. Outside, her people gathered. They would listen to her speech, her words of peace and change, but more than that, they would see the truth. The galaxy had changed, and it was no longer the Tharkin Empire they had known. Ryan stood beside her, waiting for her signal. He knew that this was only the beginning. The battle for the future was far from over. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, Virelia stepped forward, ready to speak, and the galaxy would hear her voice. The next day, the dawn over Tharkin Prime was brighter than any had seen in centuries. The twin moons faded into the horizon, leaving the sky a soft pink, casting long shadows over the grand palace. The battle was over. The Empire had been shaken, but something new was rising in its place. Queen Virelia stood at the edge of the balcony, looking over the city below. Her cloak fluttered in the gentle wind, and her long glowing tail moved gracefully behind her. There were still whispers of rebellion in the air, but the people had made their choice. They had seen strength, not fear. They had seen truth, not lies. Beside her, Commander Ryan Hayes watched the crowds gathering in the main plaza below. The people of Tharkin Prime were waiting. They were waiting for their queen to speak. "They're ready," Ryan said, his voice low. "It's time," Virelia nodded, her eyes steady and calm. "It is." In the heart of the city, the people of the Tharkin Empire gathered, their eyes fixed on the palace. The morning sun glistened off the buildings, and the plaza was filled with Zarians, humans, and many other species who had come to witness the new chapter in galactic history. The Queen, once a symbol of old power, now stood as a beacon of change. Ryan stood by her side as the one who had challenged her, and in doing so, had helped her awaken to a future she had never imagined. Together they would speak to the galaxy. The crowd fell silent as Virelia appeared on the balcony. Flicked behind her, glowing in the soft light, her eyes scanned the crowd, and for the first time, there was no fear in her gaze. "My people," she began, her voice strong and clear. "For centuries, we have ruled with strength, but we have also ruled with silence. We have allowed our traditions to define us, without questioning them. Today, that changes. There was a murmur among the crowd. Many were uncertain, unsure of what the future would hold. Yesterday, we stood on the edge of war, she continued. And it was not my strength that saved us. It was the courage of a human, a soldier who grabbed my tail, a symbol of our power, not in disrespect but in defiance. He challenged me. He challenged the Empire. The crowd was still. The words were heavy in the air. But I did not punish him. I did not destroy him, Varelia said, her voice growing stronger. Instead, I saw something in him. Something I had forgotten. The courage to stand for something greater than himself. The courage to fight for truth. And that is what I saw in humanity. A fire that we have lost. She paused, looking out at the faces before her. The old ways must end. The galaxy is changing, and we must change with it. No longer will we be rulers who look down on others. We will be leaders who walk with them. On the far side of the plaza, Prince Jero stood watching, hidden among a group of soldiers. He had tried to flee, but the people had turned on him. His rebellion had failed, and now he had no place in the new order. He glared at the queen, his hands clenched in fists. He had wanted power, but what had power brought him now? Defeat, dishonor. His name would be forgotten, wiped away by the very empire he thought he could control. But he wasn't the only one who had lost. General Kelthar was locked in the palace dungeon, waiting for his trial. Many of the nobles who had supported the coup were either dead or in hiding. The queen had won, and humanity had won alongside her. Back on the balcony, Queen Varelia raised her hand. Today I declare that the Zarian Empire is no more. From this moment, we are the Galactic Union. We will stand as equals with all the species of the galaxy. We will build a future based on truth, respect, and cooperation. The crowd erupted into cheers. The Zarians, who had once believed they were the superior race, now joined with the humans, the aliens, and the outsiders. The stars above had been their symbol of power, but now they would be their symbol of hope. Ryan looked at Varelia, a slight smile on his face. You did it? She turned to him. No, we did it. Together. While the crowd cheered below, the world around them was changing. The Galactic Union was born, and with it came a new sense of purpose. The people of Tharkan Prime were no longer bound by the old traditions. They were free to build a future together as equals. Ryan and Varelia stood side by side, watching as the galaxy slowly began to understand what had happened. The human fire that had burned in Ryan's heart had now spread across the stars, and the flame of change was unstoppable. Varelia's tail flicked behind her, no longer a symbol of dominance, but of unity. This is only the beginning, she said. The galaxy is vast, and the challenges ahead are many. But together, we will face them. Together, we will build something greater. Ryan nodded. When the galaxy looks to us for hope, we will not fail them. The stars above seemed brighter now, as if they too had felt the change. A new order was taking shape, and humanity was no longer just a new race in the galaxy. They were equal, standing tall beside the great civilizations that had once looked down on them. The tale of the Queen, once a symbol of power and fear, now stood for something greater: the strength to change, the courage to defy, and the hope to unite in the galaxy with all its many species and stories would never be the same again.